Welcome to Miss Retro Reads. When I was a child, I saw a beautiful image of Our Lady, and I was trying to figure out the name of this image because she was just so beautiful. And I later found out that her name was Notre Dame du Cap, or Our Lady of the Rosary from Quebec. And I'm going to share that story with you today. If you have an image of your loved one, such as a grandparent or a spouse or someone who's far away, that image will help you remain close to that person in your heart. And we can do the same thing with images of in our churches of Our Lady, Jesus, the saints, and this will inspire devotion. Our Lady of the Rosary, or Notre Dame du Cap de la Madeleine, Quebec, Canada. In 1867, Father Luc Desilets, after he found a pig in his Quebec church munching on a rosary, was dismayed at the events, and hoping to restore religious fervor to his parishioners, the priest implored Our Lady's forgiveness and help. His prayers were answered. When French Jesuit priests began to evangelize the eastern parts of Canada, their great devotion to Our Lady was manifested by the many shrines and chapels they erected in her honor. One of the settlements that benefited from this devotion was the trading post named Three Rivers. Here in 1634, a shrine was consecrated by the Jesuit missionaries to the Immaculate Conception. In the mid-17th century, a district adjacent to the Three Rivers trading post became a separate village and was promptly dedicated to the Mother of Jesus. A fort and some houses were built there, as well as church placed under the patronage of Mary Magdalene. Eventually, the settlement became known as Cap de la Madeleine, a name it has retained. Constantly in peril of the Iroquois Indians, the people put their confidence in Our Lady to protect them. They demonstrated their trust by erecting small shrines in their homes. There, every night, they would recite their family prayers and plead for heavenly protection. Reinforced with the stones gathered from the fields, the first chapels of 1662 became 32 years later the home of one of the earliest confraternities of the Holy Rosary in Canada. Documents signed for the inauguration of this confraternity are still kept in the archives of the sanctuary. Father Vichon, the founder of the confraternity, is buried beneath the altar of the shrine. It is said that timbers used in the building of the primitive shrine bear Indian markings. The 18th century is said to have been one of the uneventful struggles in the settlement. Lacking a priest in residence who could celebrate the holy sacrifice each day and minister to the spiritual needs of the people's devotion waned. It was not until 1845 that the bishop appointed Father Linder Tourny to be the settlement's resident priest. It was during his pastorate that a generous donor presented the confraternity altar with a large statue of Our Lady in honor of the definition of the dogma of the Immaculate Conception. This was also a reminder that the Jesuit priests had dedicated the region to the Immaculate Conception 200 years earlier. It is the figure of Our Lady that is the focus of Canada's most popular shrine of Our Lady. The statue represents Our Lady standing in an attitude reminiscent of the miraculous medal. Her bare feet crush the serpents coiled on the top of a star-studded globe. Her head is covered with a white veil and adorned with a golden crown. Her garments are gilded, ornamented, and bordered with artistic figures. Perhaps the most outstanding feature of the statue is an oversized heart, which is encircled with roses and topped with a spray of flames. This is supported by a chain encircling the neck of the Madonna. The expression of Our Lady's face is pleasant. Her eyes are modestly downcast. Unfortunately, Father Tournier was unable to rouse the people from their indifference. For this reason, Bishop Cook appointed Father Luc Desilets to help in revitalizing religious fervor. The method devised for this transformation was the building of a national shrine of Our Lady. This endeavor was to be proposed to the congregation, but on the eve of the Ascension in 1867, not one soul approached the confessional. Instead, Father Desolette discovered a pig in the church. Especially upsetting to the priest was the discovery that the pig was munching on a rosary. Overcome by the sight, Father Desolles fell to his knees to implore Our Lady's forgiveness and help. It was then that he was inspired to regain his lost flock through the promotion of the Holy Rosary. The theme of his sermon the next day was the pig and the rosary. There was an immediate awakening of fervor. Gradually, the number of penitents and devotees increased until the building of a new church became a necessity. When the bishop granted permission for this undertaking, the stones needed for the new church were cut and dressed at a quarry at Saint Angel on the other side of the river. This task took 2 years, from 1877 to 1879. It was the intention of the builders to drag the stones across the frozen river of St. Lawrence River during winter, since thick ice customarily formed and provided a natural bridge. But the winter of 1879 proved to be an exceptionally mild one. During the month of March, the parishioners grew increasingly doubtful that they would be able to secure the needed stones from the opposite side of the river. Realizing that the plans for the new church would likely be abandoned, Father Desolette had recourse to urgent prayer and bargained with Our Lady. If the Heavenly Queen would construct a bridge of ice sufficient to transport the stones, he would not supplement the supply of stone by taking the stones from her primitive church. He would instead preserve the old church and cause it to be dedicated for all time as a perpetual shrine of the Most Holy Rosary. The Holy Prelate's prayers were answered almost immediately. On March 15, 1879, a violent gale began to pile up ice floes until a bridge of thick ice formed from one shore to the other. The next day, a Sunday, it was found that this bridge of ice could bear the weight of 30 or 40 men. The next day saw a steady stream of more than 150 horse-drawn sledges crossing and recrossing this bridge, carrying loads of stone. By the end of the week, every stone needed was located on the church site. Then, when the ice bridge was no longer needed, a thaw set in. The next day, just as quickly as it had formed, the ice bridge was gone. We are assured that the formation of the ice bridge is no imagined legend, since newspapers of the time told of this mysterious and timely formation, as well as its sudden disappearance. The miraculous ice bridge is also recounted in a detailed letter written by Father Frederick, OFM, dated 1916, whose cause for canonization was introduced in 1940. Moreover, the events relative to the ice bridge was regarded by everyone as extraordinary. A permanent marker was erected in the gardens of the sanctuary to memorialize the occasion of the miraculous bridge of ice. The church that was built with the stones that had been transported across the ice bridge was opened on October 3rd, 1880. The primitive Lady Chapel was restored, but was not ready for use until June 22nd, 1888, when great ceremonies took place. It was during this observance that the small church was consecrated to the Virgin Mary as a pilgrimage site. Father Frederick, who had recently joined the pastoral team, delivered the sermon. He later became the pilgrimage director and served in this capacity until 1902. Of the many miraculous events that occurred at the shrine, one of the most notable took place on June 22, 1888, the same day that the small restored church was consecrated to the Virgin Mary. One of the pilgrims on that day was Pierre Lecroix, a sick man from Three Rivers. Because of his infirmity, he was assisted into the chapel by Father Desolette and Father Frederick. While they were praying, all three independently observed that the eyes of the statue of Our Lady, which moments before had been downcast, were then wide open and looking straight ahead. The men doubted what they were seeing until they questioned one another. Each man described the statue's eyes as living eyes. Father Desilets recorded, "She raised her eyes and looked in front of her as if looking outwards, far into the distance. Her face was at times severe and sometimes sad." Father Desilets died 8 weeks after this miraculous event. Detailed accounts of this occurrence are carefully preserved in the sanctuary archive, including the following declaration. I, Pierre Lacroix, Indian man, resident of the city of Three Rivers, solemnly declare that in the month of June of the year in which, at the shrine of Our Lady of the Holy Rosary at Cap de la Madeleine, a great religious feast had been celebrated to mark the fact that on that day the statue of the Blessed Virgin, which had formerly occupied the side chapel as altar of the Confraternity of the Most Holy Rosary, had been installed over the main altar. I went into the shrine about 7 o'clock in the evening, accompanied by Vicar General Luc Desilets and Reverend Father Frederick. I was walking between the two of them, being helped by them. We had taken our places before the altar rail in front of the main altar, over which the statue had been placed, the Vicar General and the Reverend Father on their knees, myself sitting between them on a chair placed there for the purpose, for I could not kneel because of my infirmity. After praying for a while, I looked up at the statue of the Blessed Virgin, which was facing directly towards me. As I did so, I most distinctly saw the statue with its eyes wide open in a completely natural manner. It was as if it had looked out over our heads, and it seemed to me to be looking at Three Rivers. I examined this closely without saying anything. Then Vicar General Desilets, leaving his place, which was on my right, went over to Father Frederick, and I heard him say, "Do you see it?" "Yes," said Father. "The statue has its eyes open, hasn't it?" I then told them that I had seen the same thing for several moments, and I make this solemn declaration, believing it in conscience to be true, and knowing that it has the same force and the same effect as if made upon oath under the jurisdiction of the Act of Proof in Canada, 1893, and I declare that I do not know how to write my name. Signed, Pierre Lacroix, X his mark. Taken before me at Three Rivers this 14th day of January in the year of our Lord, 1895. Signed, P. Desilets, N.P. This declaration was certified as act on all points by Father Frederick in his historical report of 1897. Father Frederick wrote, "I continue to reaffirm my belief that I never had any doubt, and the effect left by the long stare of the Virgin is still present in my eyes. News of this miracle, as well as that regarding the ice bridge, prompted pilgrimages that have continued ever since, and have increased in number until the shrine is regarded as the most frequented shrine of the Blessed Mother in Canada. Between serene ponds and a lovely lake, a whole complex of buildings, gardens, and devotional areas have developed around the shrine. Among the additions were the monastery of the Oblate Father of Mary Immaculate, a convent for the Dominican nuns, a retreat house, a perpetual adoration chapel, restaurants, a building for lodging pilgrims, and basilica, which was inaugurated in 1964. The Stations of the Cross is on the other side of the Little Feverel River, linking the shrine grounds to the stations to the Holy Bridge, named in memory of the historic episode of 1879. The bridge is decorated throughout with large chains resembling rosaries. In 1904, Pope St. Pius X ordered the crowning of Notre Dame du Cap. Once again, the statue was crowned when Pope Pius XII sent his delegate, Cardinal Valery, to act in his stead. To this day, Notre Dame du Cap is the only Madonna to be crowned in Canada. The shrine was also dignified by the visit of Pope John Paul II on September 10, 1984. 75,000 pilgrims joined in welcoming him. The year 1988 was one of exceptional interest since the centennial of the shrine was observed with special ceremonies. Also celebrated that year was the beatification of Father Frederick on September 25th. Countless pilgrims who visit Notre Dame du Cap also journey to the Three Rivers, where Blessed Frederick's tomb is found in the chapel of the Franciscan order. The end. I hope you enjoyed that reading. Wouldn't it be neat to go visit her? How cool. I hope you have a great Sunday and join me back here Wednesday for another reading. Thanks for listening to Miss Retro Reads.